Hey, the Rams finally kept their first round pick this year, and low key, the Rams have been building through the draft for years and doing a good job of it. However, will it pay off in a return to the Super Bowl in 2024? Let's go ahead and discuss. What's crackalacking? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know so, and welcome back to the Deep Dive series where we take a look at each and every NFL team and project how they're going to do in the 2024 season. And today, I got your LA Rams. But before we talk about 2024, we got to talk about what happened in 2023. The Rams started out the season looking like a well-oiled machine, beating the Seahawks 30-13, but the left side of their offensive line began to be exposed in losses to the Niners and the Bengals. Alaric Jackson didn't look good either and ended up getting hurt. The likes of Joe Noteboom and Zach Thomas weren't good either, but the Rams were able to beat the Colts thanks to a man who should have been the Offensive Rookie of the Year, Puka Nacua, and in that game, he had 9 receptions, 163 yards, and a tutty. But Puka wasn't the only rookie producing, as Steve Avila was holding his own at left guard, and Byron Young and Kobe Turner gave Aaron Donald finally some much-needed help along the defensive line. The Rams would be 3-3 heading into Week 7, where they lost on a Kenny Pickett quarterback sneak on 4th and 1 that looked very short, but ended up being ruled a first down. Brett Maher missed 3 field goals in this game and would be released soon after. The following week, Matthew Stafford would get hurt in a loss against the Dallas Cowboys, and Brett Rippon would make a start prior to their bye week, losing to the Packers 20-3. After the bye week, Matthew Stafford would return, and the Rams went on an insane 3-4 game winning streak, going 7-1 to finish the season, with their only loss being a close game against the Baltimore Ravens. Guys like Kyren Williams and Cooper Kupp got healthy during this stretch, and even Alaric Jackson was starting to look really solid at left tackle. This carried them to the playoffs at 10-7, and unfortunately, they would be bounced by the Detroit Lions in the wild card round in a very close game, which most of their games this season were very close. In terms of efficiency, as long as Matthew Stafford was out there, this offense was moving the football. It was humming, and the offensive line deserves a lot of credit, especially for the run game that ranked 2nd in the NFL, and that was with the likes of Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson filling in for Kyren Williams. Defensively, the Rams were still carried by Aaron Donald, which unfortunately won't be the case in 2024. Real quick, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first time deposit up to $250. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So if you're gonna go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. Aaron Donald is the biggest hit to this team now that he's retired. He was arguably the greatest defensive player of my generation and will be impossible to replace, but the Rams gave it the good old college try this offseason. Safety Jordan Fuller, cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon, and center Coleman Shelton were some of the guys who had significant snaps in 2023 that won't be back this season. However, Witherspoon is still a free agent, so he could end up back on this squad a little bit later in the offseason. Let's go ahead and let's talk about what they added this offseason. So the Rams went out and added some veteran talent to the cornerback room, and they started with Trey White, who, granted, he's been very injury prone the last few seasons, but when on the field, he's exceptionally solid, a good player to add to your cornerback room. They didn't stop there, though. They went out, got someone who they were very familiar with in Darius Williams, who, yes, it's a new defensive coordinator, but the defense should be relatively the same under Chris Shula. We'll talk about him when we get to the coaching staff. So I like them going out, adding that veteran talent, as they do have some young guys who were a bit up and down the last year or two in Kobe Durant, Darian Kendrick, and Trey Tomlinson. But they didn't stop there. They also got a backup quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G. He will miss, the first 4 or 6 games to the season because of PEDs. He will miss the first 2 games. Wow, only the first 2. But yeah, he's a backup. We did see Stafford miss some time last year. Actually, I think he only missed the 1 game last season because at the end of the year, they already kind of like solidified their playoff seed in. So Carson Wentz kind of got the start and actually looked pretty good. I'm surprised he's not back with the squad. But they also went out and snagged Cameron Curl to the secondary. I think he's going to be playing a bit more of a box safety role because it feels like the slot's it's going to be Quentin Lake, but Quentin Lake has that versatility to play really either of the safety spots. Cameron Curl can also kick into the slot. So really, I'm thinking like we'll get to it when we get to the defensive starters. I'm not the biggest believer in Russ Yeast. I think he might be kind of a detriment to the squad in the secondary, but I do like the addition of Cameron Curl, and they did it at a relatively cheap cost, though I think you could argue that they could have also brought back Jordan Fuller, who went to the Panthers on a 1-year deal and was relatively inexpensive. I'm kind of shocked that they didn't opt to bring him back. They also signed Jonah Jackson. He was kind of the big acquisition offensively. This will kick Steve Avila into center, and Jackson will take that left guard role. I like that. Listen, I don't think he's like a top guard in the NFL, but if he's like your 3rd or 4th best offensive lineman, you probably feel like your offensive line is in relatively good shape. And honestly, on this team, he's probably their 4th best offensive lineman. Dare I say even 3. It kind of depends on how Steve Avila makes that transition to center. So I like the addition of Jackson. Keep a strength to strength. And that offensive line was certainly a strength, especially during the last half of the season. They also brought in Colby Parkinson, who I like. I'm shocked that the Seahawks didn't manage to keep him. I think he's probably going to be the heir apparent to Tyler Higbee, who did miss some time the last couple of seasons. So, and they have Davis Allen still around there. Bryson Hopkins, I think he's kind of on the way out. I think he's this is the last year of his contract anyway. But I like Parkinson, man. I thought he flashed quite a bit the last couple of years. And dare I say, I thought he may have been like the best tight end among the 3 there in Seattle with guys like Noah Fant and Will Disley. So, again, love that acquisition. They brought back Kevin Dotson, as they should. He looked really good in the system. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about what this team did in the draft, because it was hella good. So with their first round pick since 2016, I think, or maybe it was 2017, they decided to take Jared Verse to add some edge help, which I like that. I like that quite a bit. You saw some flashes from Byron Young, but now you get Jared Verse in there. Byron Young, I feel like it's going to be more of a high-end number 2. Jared Verse, I think, can be that number 1. And listen, all the sex appeal. This is a cat that is just physically dominating. He is jacked, he is strong, but he also brings a bit of that explosiveness. He doesn't just win with power moves, but he is capable of bending the edge. So I loved that pick there. I actually slotted him into my Dolphins, who I expected to go after edge. Ended up not making it to pick 21. Kind of is what it is. If he would have came out in the 2023 draft, probably would have been a top 10 pick. Ends up going 19th, which a little sad, but still first round talent. Great player. Loved him when he made the transfer from Albany. And I remember watching him during spring practices for Florida State, and I was like, oh man, low key, this guy could be a hot riser. He ended up being a hot riser. He was outstanding for Florida State the last couple of years. Speaking of Florida State, they also grabbed Braden Fisk, who was a hot riser during the draft cycle, as he tested out like a monster. Looked good during the Senior Bowl, but he is someone who he plays with a hot motor. But there are times where if his first move doesn't get it done, then his pass rush typically fizzles out. You do worry about him in the run game because I feel like he's more of a disruptor than someone who could actually anchor down and set, but like he is exceptionally disruptive. And now you're reunited him with Jared Verse. So I like this. They lose Aaron Donald. They're like, okay, let's go out. We already got a great player in terms of the conductor, Kobe Turner. Let's keep adding to that. Brandon Fisk was, I think, a very good addition. So I like that. I like that. You lose someone the caliber of Aaron Donald, you're like, okay, well, let's take multiple shots on the defensive line in the early parts of the draft. And they did that. They did that, and they did it well. And then with their third round pick, this broke my heart a little bit. They go out and they get Blake Corum. This is a good pick. This is a sad pick if you are a dynasty owner of Kyren Williams, because you look at Blake Corum and you're like, okay, he's kind of... So Kyren Williams was someone who was like, okay, not really tested, like undersized, but didn't test out as well. But you've seen his ability in the receiving game back in Notre Dame. And then just because of his elite vision, he becomes this monster for the Rams. On the flip side, Blake Corum didn't really have that receiving aspect. Wasn't really used as a pass protector a lot. Though I don't think you would use him much as a pass protector because of his size. Dude is feisty though. But like elite vision, can pick up yards in chunks. And it feels like, okay, they got a similar, at least body size to someone like Kyren Williams. How much is Blake Corum going to eat into the workload of Kyren Williams? And that's where me as a dynasty manager gets a little queasy. But when you look at it as like, okay, how does this help the team? I think it helps them quite a bit, man. I truly, truly do. You get these guys with elite vision already with an offensive line that, dare I say, is one of the best when it comes to run blocking in the league. Yeah, you're going to be feeling hella good about this. Like, you're not going to lose nothing when Kyren Williams comes off the field. And to be fair, they didn't really when Kyren Williams got hurt. I mean, they were able to put in guys like Royce Freeman, Ronnie Rivers, Darrell Henderson, and those guys actually produced. So now you get someone with, dare I say, better talent than those guys. I think that's kind of safe to say. Now you're like, watch out. We got a legit two-headed beast. Reports from training camp is he's been doing really well in becoming a pass catcher. So yeah, as a dynasty manager, I hate it. Terrifies me. If I'm a Rams fan, I'm like, hell yeah. Offense, that sucker's going to be humming once again. And then let's move on to their other third round pick in Cameron Kitchens. I loved Kitchens. Kitchens, not like an ideal athlete, but the dude moves exceptionally well on the field. He's got a good nose for the football as well. But unfortunately, he kind of has this high risk, high reward type of not mentality, but type of play. Like, he's very boom, very bust. He can make big plays for you, but you're also going to have to deal with the coverage bust. And that was very evident last year. We saw it in the North Carolina game. We saw it at the end of the Georgia Tech game, unfortunately. So Kyron Kitchens has got great nose for the football. And honestly, I would love to see Kitchens usurp Russ Yeast, but I'm not willing to put the carriage before the horse right now. When it comes to that, he's still a third round pick. Let's wait and see. I feel like this team really likes Yeast there at the back end. Moving on to the day 3 picks. 5th round, they go with Brennan Jackson. Just some more edge help. Someone that maybe can get involved into the edge rotation. We'll talk about some of the guys behind guys like Verse and Byron Young a little bit later when we talk about the offense. So solid pick there. He's got prototypical size and length, so you like that. Moving on to the 6th round, Tyler Davis. See, I really like that they were like, okay, we hit on defensive line early. Let's hit it on it late as well. Tyler Davis may lack like ideal height, may lack ideal length, plays with a big motor, plays with great leverage. He's been very productive the last 2-3 years there at Clemson. You get him in on this rotation and you're like, okay, cool. I like that. Again, you're having to replace one of the best of all time. So yeah, take multiple shots at the defensive line. That's just the right call there. It truly, truly is. They grabbed a kicker in the 6th round, which, hey, I don't think you should draft kickers or punters because I think you get quality players at that position as UDFAs. But I understand Brett Maher, he was pretty bad last year, led to him being released. Yeah, go out and get one of the best kickers in the draft in Josh Carty. And in all honesty, if you're doing that in the 6th, 7th round, I don't mind it as much. But, golly, I love this next pick. These next 3 picks, actually. So they go out and they grab Jordan Whittington, who is going to be an interesting player for this offense. Someone who was very good after the catch, but injuries have played a big part in his career. Big reason why we weren't talking about him as an early day 3 pick. Unfortunately, that is the case. I'm very fascinated to see how this team will utilize him because they just do a very good job at scheming up production for their wide receivers, like even gadget guys like Tutu Atwell, who honestly last year kind of emerged as a bit more than that, but then later on in the season kind of fell back into that role. But yeah, I like the addition of Whittington here. It'll be interesting to see if he makes the squad. They also go out and grab Bo Limmer, who I had as a 3rd round prospect. He ends up falling to the 6th round. I get it, maybe lacks ideal size and length, probably pigeonholed into playing center because of that, but like his first half of the year, as he's kind of like had the training wheels on, still learning the position, because if you didn't know, he was formerly a left guard the year prior. But the second half of the season, he really turned it on, really started to understand the position, tested out extremely well. I thought he looked really good during the Senior Bowl. Listen, don't at me with, oh, look at what Devondre Sweat did to him on 1 rep. He was doing that to everybody he lined up against. Kind of is what it is. But like there were a few reps that were very impressive against Sweat, where it was like, okay, listen, I know you're going to come at me with not just with massive power, but a good first step. So I'm going to buy time for my quarterback by dying this slow death, by having to like multiple resets and just kind of conceding ground, but doing it slowly. He did a good job of that. So I like Bo Limmer, someone to maybe watch out for later on. If anything, gives them very good depth. They also decide to go and hit the offensive line again with KT Leviston out of Kansas State. He's listed as an offensive lineman. I think someone who might not have the athleticism to stick at tackle, but I could have said that about Alaric Jackson. I thought Jackson might end up being a guy that kicks into guard. And honestly, kind of played well during the second half of the season at tackle for the Rams. Leviston could make it there out at tackle, but I kind of question what he can do out in space. But when it comes to length and strength, he's got that, even if like you see him as a future guard. If anything, really good depth at the guard position. So I thought that was a good pick. Someone who I think I had like a 5th, 6th round grade on. You get him in the 7th round, ends up being a very quality pickup. But that's it for their draft. Let's go ahead and talk about the coaching staff. Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion. I think he's a top 10 coach in the league. And right when we thought, okay, he's gonna go on a hiatus, he's gonna go do commentary for a little bit and then find a really good coaching job and go there, he's like, nah, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna compete with this squad. But they're not done yet, and they competed last season, making the playoffs. McVay's a phenomenal offensive mind. He comes from that Mike Shanahan coaching tree. He worked under Mike Shanahan there in Washington. And when it comes to his offense, well, shoot, man, it's a wide zone blocking scheme. They incorporate a lot of, I would say, like Gruden-esque, like passing concepts. I mean, shoot, John Gruden was an advisor for the squad a couple of years ago, but they love motions, they love shifts, they love playing with that misdirection, keeping the defense on their toes. And I thought last year, something that I thought that McVay didn't do well as a play caller in 2022. In 2023, he definitely leaned in and leaned more on the running game, because I thought that's when Stafford was at his best. When this team really leaned into the running game, they were able to play around with those jet sweeps, those motions, those play actions, and were able to get guys open on the intermediate to deep parts of the field. And he really leaned into that last year, especially when Kyren Williams was able to stay healthy. And it's just one of the best offenses in the league. Like I said, like earlier in the video, like this team was second in terms of run game efficiency. They were 11th in passing game efficiency. It was one of the best offenses in the league. That's why his grades offensively are so darn good. Under him is Mike LaFleur. He will be in his second year of being an OC for the Rams. He was formerly the offensive coordinator for the Jets. He was kind of one and done there, but he also worked as the passing game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan. So, hey man, it's that Shanahan McVay influence, baby. You gotta love it. Gotta love it. And then defense is where the questions will be, but I think we're gonna see a very similar defense to what Raheem Morris ran here last season. Raheem Morris, now head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, but Chris Shula takes over, and he's been around with this squad since McVay came to town, as he's been with the Rams since 2017 as a position coach. Last year, he was the linebackers coach and the passing game coordinator. Now he gets promoted to DC. He did come out and say that, yeah, we're there, like concept wise, schematically, there will be a few things we do different. But for the most part, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to stick to what we were good at last year. And what we saw from this defense last year, of course, it's that 3-4 defense with a lot of too high, a lot of soft zone coverage. The blitz rate, Raheem Morris likes bringing in blitzes, bringing them in from different angles, different positions, whether it's delayed up the middle, off stunts, or his slot coming in to wreak some havoc. He does a good job of that last year. I think Raheem Morris was in the top 12. I think he was 11th with a 26.8% blitz rate. I don't think much of that's gonna change under Chris Shula. I just don't. But since we haven't seen it from him, that's why I got question marks here. We'll see how it goes, because it's not like the defense was like a world beater last year. They were very middle of the league. And now without Aaron Donald there, how big of a hit does this defense take? Well, we'll talk about that when we get to the roster. But let's talk about the rest of this coaching staff, because there's some interesting names here for the coaching staff. Of course, you got Sean McVay, you got Mike LaFleur, Chris Shula, and then Chase Blackburn as the special teams coordinator. He's going to be in his first season, spent a lot of time with the Panthers, and like wherever he goes, like he tends to set like franchise like team records for whether it's like kicking, punting, like return yardage. Like he's like low key one of the best special team coordinators in the NFL. He was with the Titans last year as well, which, I mean, the Titans, they had to call a lot of audibles with injuries when it came to punters last year, unfortunately. And I know a lot of people are going to go back and look at like, well, shoot, man, didn't they have like 2 blocked punts against the Colts? Wasn't the finest year, but from like a kicking standpoint and in terms of like where that punt unit, like I think they were like second in the league in terms of where offenses had to start their drives. It was around like the 24-yard line. So like Blackburn, low-key, really good. Should be very happy about him. But they do got some names down here as well, as I think Dave Ragone is here as a quarterbacks coach somewhere, right? Where are you at? There he is, Dave Ragone, here as the quarterbacks coach. Bears fans might not love the sound of that. Wasn't able to really get Mitch Trubisky going and whatnot. But I think, and that was during his time as a offensive coordinator. But I think, was Okay, I know he was OC last year for the Falcons. So it's like, now he's here as a quarterback coach. I don't know. I'm just saying this is a fascinating name to have on the coaching staff. Ron Gold, probably one of the best running back coaches in the business. This man's been around football for about like 30 years, like going to like his college ranks and what he's done with some of the guys last couple of years. One of the best running back coaches in the NFL. So you love to see it. Also, Sean Desai here as a senior defensive assistant. Things didn't go well as a DC for the Eagles last year. We'll see what he can do. What can we really credit him with when it comes to this defense? I'm very curious to see how many hands will be in the pot, since this is Chris Shula. Won't be just his first time as a DC, but as like the defensive play caller. So this is going to be very, very fascinating. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about that offense. As per usual, you will see my grades right over here for each position group. Let's start with Matthew Stafford. The man's up there in age. Father time comes for us all, and ultimately his trade is going to look like a success because they got a Super Bowl out of it. But how much is left in the tank? Because the dude's still playing, I think, at an exceptionally good level. He has been relatively mistake-free. I think he only had 12 turnover worthy plays last year to like, what was it, like 30 big-time throws? 37. Golly. So he's still playing good football. He might not be as, like, not mobile, like, but he's still, they'll still put him out on some like play action bootlegs and whatnot. But for the most part, it's like you want the offensive line to be good because the mobility is very limited. But Matthew Stafford still out here slinging the dang football, playing at an exceptionally high level. That's why the grade here is around a B-. I think he's still in that top 12 of the league when it comes to quarterbacks. But I am waiting and probably unfairly anticipating the fall off and the drop off. So we'll see with him, but he is still a good, he's still an exceptionally good leader, head honcho, commander-in-chief of this offense. And then we got Kyren Williams in the backfield to deal with injuries last year. So they bring in Blake Corum. So I'm actually pretty darn excited about this running back room outside of, again, I know I keep bringing this up, outside of being that dynasty owner of Kyren Williams. That's why, hey, if you're a dynasty owner and Kyren Williams and you didn't walk away from your draft with Blake Corum, you shouldn't feel good. You shouldn't feel good. So they got that two-headed beast. Pretty excited about that. We'll talk about some of the guys that are also there behind Corum and Williams. But golly, the weapons are really good. Even if Cooper Kupp is out of the prime of his career, that he's starting to enter the twilight, the dude's still going out there and producing well. The question is, can he stay healthy? Because I think he can stick around for the league for quite a while. Because what is he at? Like 31 right now or something? I think he could stick around the league like an Adam Thielen and still be stupid productive. Last year, played in 13 games. Did start the year hurt and beat up. He is, in fact, 31. Yep, he'll be playing at age 31 this year. So Cooper Kupp still hella good. He's going to function there primarily in the slot. 62% of his snaps did come out of the slot. And then, of course, you got who I thought should have been the offensive rookie of the year in Puka Nacua. I think when you're setting records, yeah, you probably should get that accolade. But it is what it is. CJ Stroud still had a hell of a season, but Puka Nacua just kind of came out of left field. Like, I don't think there was an analyst that really had Puka Nacua really high anywhere. I think I had him in that 5th, 6th round range because this is just so fascinating. This is why people, or at least people who evaluate and analyze the draft, are starting to just look at GPS speeds, like in-game speeds, rather than those 40 times. Because again, 40 time isn't everything, but sometimes it's nice to see that top end speed that could take the top off of defense. But you want to look at how fast are these guys moving during the game. And for Puka Nacua, he was always like, he doesn't look like the fastest athlete, but golly, he's so darn smooth. And I remember writing that in his eval. I was like, I don't know if this guy's fast. Like, he's not slow, but I don't know if he's going to be like a top end, high end type of speedster, but he is so smooth on the football field. So much so, man, they had this guy returning kicks, taking jet sweeps, and he was able to get it done. So like now being able to have access to those GPS times or scores, those miles per hour during the game are so much more clutch. That's why you see a guy like Xavier Leggett. It's like, yeah, no, we want to get this guy early and maybe in the first round, because like he was clocked in at like 24 miles an hour at some points last year for South Carolina. So those GPS times are becoming such now a much bigger part of the evaluation. So Puka Nacua kind of ends up being like the guy that gets people like, okay, this in-game speed is probably way more important than these 4 times. Matter of fact, it's definitely more important than these 40 times. And then I'm going to go with Demarcus Robinson being the wide receiver 3 here. Just a savvy veteran. I think we're still going to see plenty of Tutu Atwell. He's someone that can win vertically. He's got good speed. You can mess around with him as a gadget player. So, like, he's still got that, but Demarcus Robinson's built more as, well, okay, he's a guy that can come in and be a very good possession receiver. He came in big for him during the second half of the season. He's like a Nelson Aguilar type at this juncture in his career, and you kind of just want those guys on the roster, even if they don't end up being starters. Like if injuries do occur, that you could just plug them in and feel really, really good. So I'm actually going to go with him being the starter, even though Tutu Atwell edged him out in snaps last year. It was obviously Demarcus Robinson was the guy later in the year. And then at tight end, it's still Tyler Higbee. As long as he stays healthy, he's gonna be the guy there for him. Last year he only missed, I think, like a game or two. With a was it a head injury? Was it a concussion? I can't remember, but someone who is still solid enough, good possession type. But I think he will be looking over the shoulder of a guy like Kobe Parkinson, who again I absolutely love. And then you have the offensive line, and this is where my grades are so big for this offensive line, because you know what? I'm slamming my hand on the table. I'm gonna go to bat for Alaric Jackson. I wasn't that high on him when he came out of Iowa. That was the same year as Tristan Wirfs, I believe. Alaric Jackson was someone who was like, okay, man, this guy's got good play strength. I'm not too confident about his athletic ability to play on an island. He plays very reactive, like he will attack the snap even in passing sets, which you don't want to do that. You typically want to drop back, but instead he's attacking this like it's a run play. Like I thought he did a lot of things wrong, and I mean, shoot, we are now like multiple years removed from his draft season. What he was drafted in the was he even drafted, or was he a free agent pickup? But he was in the I can't even remember at this point, but he was in the 2021 NFL draft. And dude, second half of the season, turned it on. Didn't expect it after he had a couple of bad games against like Nick Bosa. Hey, guess what? Nick Bosa does that to a lot of guys, but I thought he rebounded exceptionally well. Matter of fact, if you want to go back and look at his second game against Nick Bosa, was it perfect? Hell no, but it was a hell of a lot better. Only allowed 3 pressures, no sacks, won 95% of those snaps. Like that's solid. That's really good. So he's trending in the right direction, and you're hoping he can stay healthy, because as we're gonna get to, I don't got a lot of faith with the guys behind him that are the backup tackles here. But They also bring in Jonah Jackson. I talked about, hey, if this guy's like the third, fourth best offensive lineman on your squad, then you're probably in a good place. And I think that's going to be the case, man. Because I think you got the best guys are like Rob Havenstein, one of the most, I think, underrated right tackles in the NFL. Nobody talks about this cat enough. He's an exceptionally great pass protector, but also low-key a really, really good run blocker. And with him next to him is Kevin Dotson, who had his breakout season, who had a really good year, his rookie year for the Steelers. Didn't really build off that. And then he moves over to a new scheme, similar in some regards, but a different scheme, and just explodes. Played exceptionally well. Like, of course you had to bring this guy back. You could make a great argument. He was your best offensive lineman last year. So now the right side of your offensive line looking really good. Steve Avila making the move to center, very interested. I thought he did really well last season for a rookie at left guard. Now you move him to center. I'm fascinated. So I feel really good about those four parts of the offensive line, and then expecting Alaric Jackson maybe to even make another jump, or even if he is just the guy that we saw in the second half of the season, I think that's fine. This is still going to end up being one of the best offensive lines in football, and I'm very, very excited for it. But let's go ahead and talk about the depth on this squad, as I guess we'll just start with the offensive line, as I'm more excited about like some of the rookies they have in here. Because like a guy like Joe Noteboom, he stepped up last season, didn't look good. He's on the final year of his contract because he's got a couple of void years there. So you're going to get off his contract, which I think he was like 3 years, $40 million. So now you're going to get a little more unexpensive. You're going to get cheaper moving forward. That's probably the word I'm looking for. But behind him, it's like, okay, what the hell are we doing? Like, you got AJ, was it Arcuri? Former Michigan State player. Like, is he anything much more than depth? I don't know. We haven't really seen him. Warren McLennan could be a solid backup, but like it wasn't really a guy coming out of Georgia that I was like, oh, okay, man, this guy's great. No, I was like, you know what? Maybe he could be an okay backup in the NFL. And maybe you rely on someone like KT Leviston, who could go out there and be okay. We'll see. Like, I think in terms of his build and his length, he could get by on that. It's just I kind of worry about what he can do from a athletic standpoint, and guard might end up being his best spot. But it kind of feels like the interior of this offensive line is, well, kind of a strength. And it's good to see Zach Thomas lined up at guard. Like, it's good to see him on the depth chart as a guard, because like he was awful at tackle. Had just one start last year. And he was utterly decimated. It was not a good showing. Allowed 2 sacks, 5 pressures. I believe that was the game versus the Bengals, right? Yeah, it was the game versus the Bengals, and he was only on there for 35 snaps. Ends up giving up 5 pressures, 2 sacks. Ray Hendrickson licking his chops, but. Yeah, like him playing, like I kind of assumed he was a guard anyway, coming out of, I think it was San Diego State. So it's good to see him at least on the depth chart as a guard. And I get it, when injuries occur, you kind of got to do the best you can with what you have available. Logan Bruss, I liked him as a day 3 pick. They took him in the 3rd round. He's done a hot lot of nothing, just hasn't really been on the field. I couldn't really tell you what they got in him as of right now. I loved Bo Limmer coming out of the draft. So, like, dude, if injuries occur, like, I guess on that interior, I'd have to say like Avila goes down, cool. Bo Limmer, I think you can do an all right job, solid job at guard, or at center, excuse me. Say that Jonah Jackson goes down, cool. Steve Avila is going to go play left guard. That's what he did last year. Avila probably could even play right guard if Dotson goes down. So like I like that. I have a lot of confidence in Bo Limmer. I think he can be a solid starter eventually at some point in the NFL. So I love that pick. I thought it was a steal. at the back end of the 6th round. So the offensive line is pretty solid. I mean, there's a couple of other guys here and there, like Justin Ditch, who was just an undersized center coming out of USC. Didn't test well. Was okay, really. Like, I think he's probably in the practice squad, if anything, really. But yeah, I think the offensive line's in really good shape. I really, really do. You go to the playmakers, I kind of just love talking about Kobe Parkins. It's someone who honestly can eat up the middle of the field, can win on those posts or like those corner routes, and win on the outside. Like, I do think this is Tyler Higbee's heir apparent. And then they probably really like Davis Allen as a tight end too. And shoot, man, I was talking about Bryson Hopkins. He's not even on this roster anymore. Dude didn't even play 100 snaps last year. But like, not even on the roster. Not even on the roster anymore. So that's how goodbye, I guess. Hunter Long hasn't really done much for this squad. Former 3rd round pick by Miami out of Boston College. Like, it's gonna be, I guess it can be interesting to see who wins tight end 4, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I don't think it really matters. Maybe Miller, Forrestall, could get the edge in there, but like, they're probably gonna go with a better blocker between Lawn and Forrestall. But outside of that, like, I really like the tight end group, and even if Higbee misses a game or two here, like, I think they'll get by a-okay just fine when it comes to the other weapons at receiver. Talked a little bit about Winnington, what he can do after the catch. He was someone I thought will be pigeonholed in the slot, played majority of the slot during his career. So maybe you are looking at heir apparent or Cooper Kupp. But I mean, you have a guy like Puka who could slide into the slot as well. And maybe you give Tutu Atwell a little bit more shots there on the outside, or maybe Tutu plays in the slot. Like, there's a lot of versatility to be had with this receiving group, and I like it. I like it a lot. Puka Nacua is a guy that can win all over the field. You could say the very, very same thing about a guy like Cooper Kupp. Marcus Robinson comes in there as a very good possession receiver. Tutu Atwell, someone who could burn you deep, or he could just burn you as a gadget-like player. Tyler Johnson's been a journeyman. I like Tyler Johnson coming out of Minnesota. Just hasn't really clicked anywhere with him. I hope he sticks to the roster. I think that would be great. And it's not like there's a lot of guys fighting for that wide receiver 5 or 6 spot. Like, Whittington's probably making this roster, so Johnson probably makes it as a wide receiver 6. Maybe you make the case for like a Xavier Smith, who's undersized speedster that came out of Florida A&M. But do you feel like you already have that with Atwell? I don't know, maybe. Drake Stoops is just, honestly, I think with Stoops, his best case scenario is Hunter Renfrow. And you could probably get Hunter Renfrow for cheap now if you really want it that bad. So he's not making this roster. Sam Wiglas is interesting here. Former Ohio State player, ended up transferring to Ohio and really started producing well as a slot guy. Probably really just a practice squad player, but someone I kind of wanted to mention here. JJ Lapp, I couldn't tell you much about him. Didn't go over him during the draft cycle, so I don't know, man. Maybe he makes some waves. But the receiving group, does it feel a little top heavy? Not really. They got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things, I think, exceptionally well. Then you get to the running back group, and you got Blake Corum. You got Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams, very active as a receiver. Blake Corum, they're trying to get him there. Trying to get him there, but you know he can get it done on the ground, as can Kyron Williams. Now, when it comes to having a little bit more size at the running back position, I believe that's why they bring in a guy like Boston Scott, who coming in at 204. So it's not like that much size, but I mean, the dude is, I guess, girthy to a degree because he's at 5'7" there, but they just got some guys there behind him. Like, they really do. Like, Ronnie Rivers, he's undersized. He's really just a pass catcher, I think. Super undersized. Zach Evans, I was shocked. Dude, when Kyron Williams went down, I was shocked that they didn't have enough faith in Zach Evans, who, if you're unfamiliar, former 5-star, who kind of ate well at TCU for a little bit, but they never really gave him like the full workload. Goes to Ole Miss. He ate well there, but then started losing snaps to like Quinshon Judkins, who's probably going to be one of the top backs in the 2025 class. He ends up being a 6th-round pick, and it's like, yeah, he's got some things to work on in terms of like vision and whatnot, but from an athletic perspective, like I think he's got it. Ends up just like when injuries happen, they end up not trusting him. I was shocked. So like I don't even know how they feel about him, because he is the one back that gives them a little bit more size among these guys. Like even if at least Boston Scott's girthy, right? But I don't know, man. I don't think they have a lot of faith in these guys. They probably probably love Ronnie Rivers. That's just kind of that scat back type who is just going to be a part of this committee. We'll rarely see time on the field, but I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated, man. I wonder if Zach Evans maybe moves up this depth chart. Gonna have to see how he does during training camp. That will be fascinating. But ultimately, this is who I believe will be your starters / lead snap getters. Didn't talk too much about the depth, I guess, at quarterback. You got Jimmy G. He does miss the first 2 games, but kind of hoping Matthew Stafford doesn't go down. But I think Jimmy G is actually a very good backup quarterback. I think that's great. It's great to see Stetson Bennett back after going through a little turmoil mentally last season. So it's good to see him in a better place. I may not have been like the biggest fan of Stetson Bennett. I thought he was like a late day 3 pick. Maybe I didn't even think he was like a draftable cat. But at the end of the day, man, you do want to see these players do well. You want to see them succeed, and I'm not wishing any ill will on Bennett. So it's good to see him back. I get it, man. He's kind of got a little bit of that it factor to him, or at least he did at Georgia. So yeah, man. If anything, like he'll stick around as the emergency quarterback. But if Stafford does go down, you got a very, very capable, very reliable backup in Jimmy G, who was a starter just a couple of years ago. So looking good there. I think the offense again is going to eat, and they're gonna eat a lot. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the defense, because I got some questions. When you lose a guy like Aaron Donald, I'm going to have some questions. So I guess let's start with the defensive line, as they do add a couple of parts here in the form of rookies like Braden Fisk, Jared Verse. When it comes to some of the guys that kind of established themselves last year, you have second-year players like Kobe Turner, who had 50 pressures, 12 sacks. You had Byron Young, who had 51 pressures, 8 sacks. I think Kobe Turner, the conductor here, I loved him coming out of Wake Forest, and it was great to see him do well. Is he gonna be an Aaron Donald? No, that's a different type of animal. We're talking about a guy that was up there in terms of like when it came to like getting pressure on the quarterback. He was up there among the top pass rushers in the NFL. So like, yeah, Aaron Donald just built different, but I think Kobe Turner is going to be a very good, and we could be talking about him as a top 10, maybe even top 5 interior player pretty darn soon. And now you add Braden Fisk to that chaos, and I like that. I like it quite a bit. But you're also, when it comes to the nose position, because it's not like Braden Fisk or Kobe Turner are going to be guys that could really fill in the A gap. Matter of fact, I mean, if you go to last year, like Kobe Turner actually played a lot of snaps in the A gap, but for the most part, it will be someone like Bobby Brown, who just has that girth to him, playing around 330. So he's going to be a bit more of a space eater. But I guess on passing situations, you can move Kobe Turner into that spot. Or, man, maybe you just keep him kicking there and you're like, Brandon Fisk, go in and go after it. I will be curious to see how this team does to stop the run. I think Jared Verse is actually a big part of that. He really, really got better as a run, like someone who could just set the edge and make plays against the run. I thought he really did that well last season. You saw those improvements from him. And then talking about like Byron Young, how'd he do with that last year? He was solid. He was fine. Byron Young, if anything for him, it was like someone who, he was 24 his rookie season, so an older prospect, but he already had the tools, like physical and athletic tools. He already knew he had those traits. It was about adding to the pass rushing repertoire, the arsenal, becoming a little bit cleaner in terms of technique. Because keep in mind, this wasn't someone, this was someone who just started playing football late in his high school career and wasn't like a hotly sought out recruit. Ended up going to like the Georgia Military Academy, ends up playing for Tennessee, and just like, whoa, watch out, who's this guy? This guy's eating. So it was good to see him do well. It was good to see him add to that pass rush repertoire. And then you had Jared Verse across from that, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna have some guys that can wreak some legit havoc. Well, let's talk about the depth along that defensive line, as I think Tyler Davis could get involved here, depending on how they feel about Deshaun Johnson. I don't think he saw a lot of snaps last year. Saw 101 snaps, though. Honestly, he didn't do bad. Like on 63 pass rush snaps, five pressures, 2 sacks. Like, I don't know. Maybe he gets a little bip more involved there. Laryl Murchison is just a quality interior player. Like, great depth, I think, at this juncture in his career. Looking at the other interior players, Corey Durden, looking like probably going to be a journeyman, but he's got that size. He's actually got a good first step. Couldn't tell you much about some of the other UDFAs here. These are just guys I didn't watch during the draft cycle. So, as a matter of fact, I mean, even this David Elajiga, coming from the international player pathway. So someone who probably isn't familiar with the game, he's going to be on the practice squad. Actually, he probably sticks on the roster and doesn't count it, because those guys don't count against roster spots. So he probably sticks on the roster as he kind of like just learns the game of football. But like, yeah, man, this is a solid group. My question is, can they will they be good enough as run defenders? Because you are missing a big part of that in Aaron Donald. As crazy as it may seem, I feel better. Like I feel more good about this team when it comes to their ability to rush the passer without Aaron Donald, because I think they got guys that can do that are very good. But I'm curious, will this team really be that impactful as run stuffers? That's why their run grade's like a little lower than you may expect. When it comes to the pass rushers, you got Michael, Hoet? Who, this dude puzzles me. Like, look at this guy's coverage reps, because he's like, what, 300 pounds? Where you at, Hoet? Yeah. Played over 1,000 snaps last year. Had 43 pressures, 7 sacks. Nothing to scoff at, man. Guy that did get after it. But yeah, 310 pounds. And the dude had over 250 coverage reps? What the hell? And it's not like he was that good in coverage either. I mean, he made a few plays here and there, but like for the most part, you drop a 310 pounder in coverage that many times, bad things are gonna happen. So like, I don't know, man. I'm a little queasy about that. I am. But regardless, he is probably going to be your edge 2 here, or edge 3, the rotation guy. I don't think someone like Brendan Jackson's going to get involved too early or just yet. When it comes to some of the other guys, like they draft like in 2023. Took about like Nick Hampton, only saw about 70 snaps last year, undersized pass rusher. Ochan Mathis saw only 75 snaps last year, but at least he's got the size and the length. Maybe they get involved. They fight for that edge 4 spot with Brandon Jackson. I don't know. We'll see. Regardless, I really do like. I do like the swings that this that this team took on the defensive line to go add talent, knowing, hey, we're missing one of the best of all time. When it comes to the linebacker room, they got Ernest Jones, who, golly, man, this guy, very few linebackers hit the ground running at the linebacker position after being drafted. Ernest Jones is one of those guys who hit the ground running. Like, super hella good. Very good blitzer as well. 37 pressures, 6 sacks. When it comes to coverage, he for the most part, he is a guy that's like, hey, minimal gain. You're probably going to catch it on me, but I'm going to make sure that those 4 to 6 yards you get underneath are going to be the only 4 to 6 yards you get. He's a very sure tackler, 8.3% missed tackle rate. So you like that. My question is with guys next to him, like Roseboom, I'm not a big fan of, but he probably ends up being the other starting linebacker here. He did play over 580 snaps for the squad last year, but straight up didn't do a lot with it. He ain't nothing special. Maybe you make a case for Troy Reeder, who's been with this squad for a long time, since 2009 actually. Played just under 200 snaps last year. Maybe he pushes for that linebacker 2 spot, but I do think Roseboom ends up being the guy that holds down that spot. You got Jacob Hummel. I'm not a big fan of him. He's kind of like is what it is. He's fine, but like I'm kind of interested in guys like Olo Fatukasi, former linebacker out of Rutgers, who, yeah, he's probably a minimal gain guy, but someone who just was a tackling machine at Rutgers. You got Omar Spites, who was very good for Oregon State, solid enough for LSU, but again, more of a minimal gain type of guy. Nothing that's going to blow your socks off. Curious if one of those guys end up make the team and maybe usurping guys like Hummel and Reeder. But let's talk about the coverage, because I got him as as a bottom unit, and sucks to say, but like I don't know, man. I love Darius Williams. I love that pickup. Can Trey White stay healthy? Because the thing is, I don't have a lot of confidence in guys like Darian Kendrick, who was fine. He was fine last year, but you do worry someone who lacks ideal speed. And honestly, he's playing in a system where it's like, okay, as long as you make the right reads, you don't get caught out of position, you can make up for not being one of like a blazer. It's fine, is what it is. But I like him better as depth. Talk about Kobe Durant, who I'm gonna be straight up with you guys, I think is better in the slot. Unfortunately, they already got a very good slot player in Quinton Lake. Loved Quinton Lake coming out of UCLA. I was like, man, this is a guy that could play. He can play slot, he can play deep, he can play in the box. He gives you a lot of special teams experience. Hell yeah, this is a guy I want on my squad. And he steps up in the slot and does exceptionally well. I think he will be their go-to slot player next season. So, like with Kobe Durant, yeah, it's like he's shown he can play on the outside, but do you really want him to play on the outside, at least predominantly? I guess it's nice that he has that outside flexibility. And if I'm going to be honest, he's the first guy in if injury happens at corner. He's going to be the first guy in. But you go to the safety group. Again, not the biggest fan of Russ Yeast. This cat played over 800 snaps for the squad. I don't think he offers much in the box. He had a 23% missed tackle rate. That's awful. That's terrible. And then down the field, like, allowed a 72% completion rate. I just think you could do better. I'm kind of hoping Cameron Kitchens could maybe usurp him, but that's a lot to ask from a rookie. while Russ has been a guy that they've been developing the last couple of years, they probably feel they're going to feel a bit more confident in his ability than throwing a guy like Kitchens to the Wolves. Because to be honest, like Kitchens to me is like Andre Cisco, not as athletic though. And Cisco, straight up, man, Cisco's been pretty darn good for the Jaguars. He really, really has. Cameron Crow's going to come in and eat, man. He's phenomenal. I was shocked that he only got $12 million on a 2-year deal. Is what it is. Someone that could work in the slot, could work around the box. Quinn Lake can do a bit of the same. Let's look at the depth of this defense when it comes to the secondary. As I talked about Durant, talk about Kendrick. You also have Trey Tomlinson there, who was undersized, thought he might get pigeonholed into playing in the slot, but he played predominantly on the outside, on the perimeter during his career at TCU, and last year ended up playing a little bit, and honestly didn't look half bad. He really did. The dude was fine. Did he get bodied a little bit? Did he get bullied a little bit? Yeah, he did. But we're talking about a very small sample size. So someone that they're definitely hoping to develop. But looking at maybe some of the guys that can usurp him there, you talk about Sean Jolly, undersized, coming out of Appalachian State, probably more of a slot anyway. We could talk about straight up, man, Josh Wallace. I liked quite a bit. Former UMass corner, played his final year at Michigan, was good, was a leader of that Michigan defense when it came to the back end. And exceptionally just a solid player. Watch out. He could make the squad. Charles Woods. I liked him coming out of, I think it was initially West Virginia. Then he goes to SMU, and he was all right, man. He was okay. I think those are two guys that could sneak in and make this squad. I really, truly believe that. When it comes to safety depth, I thought Jason Taylor was pretty darn solid. Didn't see like a ton of snaps last year. He only had about 50 on defense, but played a lot of special teams. But I liked him kind of as a box player coming out of, I think it was Oklahoma State. Kenny Logan, kind of to that same ilk, but if you're playing a lot of too high, then I think he's A-okay. He's fine coming out of Kansas, but if he's going to make the squad, it's gonna be as a special teamer, but that requires him usurping like a Jason Taylor. So that'll be something to watch out for. If anything, I think the safety and weight is Cameron Kitchens, which definitely could happen. So yeah, I got some questions. Like, can White stay healthy? If Durant or Kendrick have to step up, will that go well? Can that go well? Russ Yeast, can he continue to develop? And if not, if Cameron Kitchens comes in, I think it's going to be very boom bust. So it's like, I will, admittedly, I do think the D grade's a bit harsh, but like, and I mean, honestly, the overall D plus just ends up being like where I have them in retrospect to the rest of the league. I have them more in that like 24, 25, 26, 27 range. That's kind of where I have them at. Because there's gonna be a fall off. Like, you don't just lose Aaron Donald and the defense gets better. That just doesn't happen. And last year with Aaron Donald, this team was 21st against the run. They were 17th against the pass. I think all those metrics will take a hit and could take a significant hit. If anything, I think that run defense, I think the run defense probably will hover around like 23, 24th. When it comes to the passing defense, I think they'll probably hover around 24, 25. So that's kind of where I have this defense at in retrospect. But I mean, fortunately, they play with a good offense that knows how to eat up clock. They know time management. But can some of these young guys for the defense step up, or at least continue to step up, take those next steps, and become top players at their position? Will these veterans come in and play good football? Can White stay healthy? Like, there's questions. Can we just acknowledge that there's going to be questions when it comes to this defense? But let's go ahead. Let's talk about where I have, or at least how I have, this team doing in 2024. When it comes to strength of schedule, I will say I have the Rams currently with the 12th to 13th hardest schedule in the NFL. So not terrible, but definitely not a cakewalk. I'm willing to say I think it's going to be on par with as tough of a schedule as they had last season, which admittedly, this was a team that played in a lot of close games and they won 10 games last season. So it's like you don't quite want to bet against the Rams, but they did kind of lose a big part of that team in Aaron Donald. Matthew Stafford, again, like you feel like he's in the twilight part of his career, but he's still performing like a top 10, top 12 quarterback in the league. Will that continue? So let's talk about maybe this team's ceiling. And when it comes to this team's ceiling, I think, I truthfully believe they'll probably get one over the Niners. I'm not going to give them this one against Detroit. It's at home, though they did play Detroit close at home in the wild card round, but it'd be still open the season. I don't know. We'll see. It could go either way. I do think they're a better team than the Cardinals. I think there's a shot they could end up sweeping the Cardinals. I think this Bears game is winnable. This Packers game going into your bye, this might be a little bit of a revenge game as the Rams lost to the Packers last year, but also that was where the Rams lost to the Packers last year, and that was because Rippon was the starter quarterback coming out of your bye. You get the Raiders. I think that's a win. I think this could be a win here. When it comes to Seattle, you swept Seattle last year, but that second game was definitely a lot closer. So let's say you split with Seattle. I think that's fair. Let's give you a win over the Dolphins and the Patriots. Eagles, you played close last year. This one's at home, but they're coming off a mini bye. I don't know. I'll just give you this one. Let's give you one maybe against the Jets. Excuse me. And I did say, let's see if you you split with Seattle. I think this is a team that can win 12 games. If they are their best selves, which they kind of were last year, they could definitely, they'll be in that 11 to 12 game area, vying for the playoffs. When it came to my predictions, again, I think when you lose Aaron Donald, that kind of matters. It's going to take at least a win or two off of what your record was the year prior. Though I do think they did a good job at trying to mitigate the damage of losing a player to the caliber of Aaron Donald. I thought they did a good job at mitigating that damage. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I had them going 8-9 for my 2024 prediction. You could honestly 8-9, 9-8. I think that's probably where the Rams are going to be, because again, the schedule is a little tough. Even if you end up sweeping a team like the Cardinals, well, shoot, I mean, technically you won a game against the Niners last year, but it was a game where you and the Niners were resting your starters. Like that's not going to happen this year. So maybe you do, man. The Rams, they typically they end up splitting with the Niners. That's just, I think, something that's happened the last couple of years. You let me know if I'm wrong about that. Comment section below. I'll keep everything here as is. But Dolphins, they kind of need this year. They kind of need a win this year. We could say the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers is actually going to play a full season. Hallelujah. And even then, we have them at 10 wins. Maybe let's say, I think this is probably more accurate. Maybe you go 3-3 in the division, or maybe you don't win against the Packers. Maybe a Raiders team ends up being hot. I think the floor for this team, if they stay healthy, is probably 7 wins. But obviously, if injury happens, if Rippon ends up starting, 5 or 7 games, like this record's going to be much worse. As we saw, that offense was just terrible. Like, they were missing Kyron Williams in that game against the Packers last year with Rippon, but I mean, this was a team that also, when Williams was down, they were able to get production from Freeman, from Henderson, from Rivers. So it's like, yeah, when you're missing your starting quarterback, but then they're going to have Jimmy G. That's also something to take into account. So yeah, maybe just the absolute floor for this team is 7 wins, but I got them at 8. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you want to check out some more of my deep dives, hey, I just did your division rival, Seattle Seahawks, just a couple of days ago. You could check out that video down here, or you could check out some of my 2025 summer deep dives for the 2025 class. That's a bit redundant, but hey, you're going to eventually need a new quarterback. Check out what this crop of quarterbacks looks like. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.